For early backers of the game, the Automobilista 2 beta hit Steam a couple of weeks ago. I didn't make a video about the initial release, but more about that later. But now Reiza have delivered a few substantial updates. I thought it was about time that I made a video about what is easily the most eagerly awaited racing sim of 2020. Hello fellow sim racers, tired new dad here to weigh in on AMS2. Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes of the video, I need to explain a couple of things. AMS2 is still in a semi-private beta state. It's not the finished product, and as such, Reiza have asked that content creators be sensitive about highlighting the unfinished parts of the game. This seems perfectly reasonable to me, especially given that AMS2 is not available publicly yet, so please understand that this is the lens through which I'm looking at Automobilista 2 today. Let's kick things off with the content. For me, this is where the first Automobilista really shined through. Not only is there plenty of varied cars and circuits, covering a wide variety of the real-world circuit racing scene, but there's lots of it that's just truly unique to AMS, thanks to its focus on South American racing series alongside more global content. If you've played AMS, much of this content will be familiar and very welcome. That being said, I'm not going to post a full list of what's currently in the game, because I'm fairly sure it doesn't accurately reflect what will be in the release version, which is scheduled for release on March 31st. Suffice to say, there's really quite a lot. When it was revealed that AMS2 would be utilising Slightly Mad Studios' Madness engine, I think it's fair to say the reaction from the community was mixed. The Project Cars games have a reputation for looking a lot better than they feel, while the original Automobilista was very much the opposite. So I think generally speaking, most opinion fell into one of two camps. The optimists felt like the relative strengths of both titles would overcome the weaknesses of the other, while the negative crowd thought, well, you probably remember. Anyhow, that's all in the past, and I'm pleased to say that, at least from my perspective, the optimists had it right. At the time of recording, the game is in beta version 3, and things have developed significantly through each of the major builds. Let's start off by talking about the force feedback, and on a direct drive wheel with the canned effects turned off, the game communicates what's going on with the car very well. More importantly, the experience is pretty consistent across all of the content, which is something that I felt was a major weakness of the other games utilising the Madness engine. Now, I would like car-specific force feedback settings though, just to fine-tune some of the more left-field content, like the karts or the trucks for example. On my setup, the force feedback feel is a step up from that of PC2, and specifically the feeling of under and oversteer either side of the grip limit is communicated very effectively. However, I have noticed that I'm much busier at the wheel than I am in most other sims. Perhaps this is a reflection of my limited time learning the sim and the intricacies of the force feedback system and the tyre models. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Where this title really seems to shine is the feel when you're on the throttle. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but in this sim, perhaps more than any other, I can really feel what's happening with the driven wheels when they're experiencing rotational slip. What that boils down to is that in a car with lots of power, and particularly with older tyres, balancing the car using your right foot is really very intuitive. So far so good then. Well, yeah, the title of the video is a promising start, and that's very much how I feel about the physics at this stage. All of the important stuff is there and done well. That being said, there are a few things that I'm a little less sure about. Cars that don't rely on downforce, and particularly older cars, feel very good at this stage, but for me the high aero cars don't quite have the same feel. We don't yet have editable car setups available in the game, so perhaps it's a simple fix. Whatever the case, I'm sure it won't be an issue for long. We all knew what AMS2 was going to look like visually, and, well, that's what it looks like. The Madness engine does look the part, and the visualization of the weather effects in particular is a real strong point. Unsurprisingly, the weather system from Project Cars 2 is present, and it certainly looks every bit as good in AMS2. The wet weather physics in the Project Cars series it was a pretty love-hate topic, and honestly, I've not done enough testing to form an opinion yet. That being said, the overall feel of the driving experience definitely makes for a marked improvement in the wet weather feel from Project Cars 2, in my opinion at least. Moving on, and for most of the beta, only single player has been available, with multiplayer having only been added yesterday. So I've not had any time to test it, and even if I had, it's at such an early stage that it would be totally unfair to talk about it with any degree of certainty. And honestly, I'm only mentioning it because I'll get questions in the comments otherwise. Single player is pretty much what you'd expect, so I won't waste your time going into it in too much detail here. But what I will say is the AI seems to have made a big series of improvements through the builds released thus far, so what you may have seen in other YouTubers' videos isn't really all that representative. Things have gotten a lot better, but there's still work to do. Again, it's still a beta. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this is the third major revision of the beta in a little over 2 weeks, and the game has been rapidly evolving during that time frame. Version 1 had some pretty serious bugs for me which rendered it unplayable unfortunately, but within a few days they were all corrected, and since that point everything's been moving rapidly in the correct direction. This is great to see, and the rate of improvement has been absolutely dramatic, so much so that I expect all of my comments about AMS2 to be completely worthless by the time it's released. And I think that comment very much justifies Reiza's decision to ask content creators to be sensitive with their treatment of the game during this limited access beta. Thus, my comments earlier in the video haven't really addressed any of the issues with the title, which of course at this stage of the development are very much part of the deal. There are bugs, and there are notable areas of the game that are lacking the final polish that you would expect from a release version. So, I'd like to end the video by once again referring to its title. I chose those words carefully. AMS2 is looking very promising, and once some of the rough edges have been ground back, I think we'll be looking at a very popular racing sim. So guys, that just about brings things to a close here. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, it would be great if you could hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you can see more content like this in the future. So all that's left to say is goodbye, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.